Getting infected with COVID-19. What does that mean? Let's assume there are respiratory droplets that have COVID-19 viruses in them. Drifting around the air, they happen to go into someone's nose. And now, the viruses come out of the droplet. And when the viruses settle down on the epithelial cells, that is the point you say the person is infected with COVID-19, by definition. Now, when this happens, what is the next? Every cell in your body is designed to respond to this kind of infection. The cells start to resist. Let's take an example of public security. At the basic level, every household takes care of their own security. Like, they lock up the front door of their houses before they go to bed. The police are not very much involved at this level. Just like this, every cell has its own security system, which gets activated when they encounter strangers. Since the epithelial cells are infected now, the cell's function of protection gets activated. The cells start to prevent the viruses from increasing by producing alpha and beta interferon. That is, an ordinary person with sound body whose immunization system is normal is capable of dealing with the situation at this basic level. What if there are a lot of viruses that have come into the nose? In this case, alpha and beta interferons are not effective enough to handle the situation. And this is the point another security force comes in. Natural killer cells, or NK cells, which are positioned around the epithelial cells, get stimulated and produce gamma interferon. And the gamma interferon are the fighters. They terminate the virus by killing the cell that has viruses. Yes, the cell itself. And it is done. Game over. No more virus is left. Beneath these epithelial cells, there is some barrier called basement membrane, which holds the epithelial cells together. One thing you better remember is that there are no blood vessels in the section where epithelial cells are. Beneath the basement membrane is the part where the blood vessels have come the farthest outward. I'm talking about how the first immunization function works. The battle in the epithelial cell section lasts for 1 day or 3 days at best. You may have had a sore throat when you had a cold. The sore throat indicates that there were military suppressions by gamma interferon. And it takes 3 or 4 more days for your body to be healed. Now, what we need to understand is that since the battle occurs and comes to end only in the upper part, the viruses never come down to the lower part, which is located beneath the basement membrane. It is only in the case of the viruses getting exposed to the lower part, which has the blood vessels, that the B lymphocyte and T lymphocyte produce antibodies. To understand this, let's take common colds for example. As you know, common colds have been with us humans throughout the whole human history. Then, why do we not have antibodies that are supposed to fight off common colds? Because a common cold never comes down across the basement membrane, never show themselves to lymphocytes. And the way COVID-19 behaves is just the same as that of common colds. You've probably heard about this. There are lots of young people who got infected with COVID-19 but showed no symptom And when they had their blood tested, there was no antibody. 1,450 people got tested, and only one person had the antibodies. You may say, really, I can't believe that. But you know what? It is very natural for them to not have any antibody. Now, where in your body do they usually give the injection? Here, you see in your arm muscle. In the muscle, there are blood vessels, and the injected mRNA vaccine spread into your body vessels and into the lymphatic vessels around them. And now the antibodies can be made. There are 5 types of antibodies, which are IgM, IgD, IgA, IgE, and IgG. Among these antibodies, what I want you to know is IgG, which is the most common type of antibody. And this IgG is the type of antibody that the vaccine made by Pfizer and Moderna can cause your body to make. The IgG antibodies can never reach the upper part, the part where epithelial cells are. Again, they can never come into the area where epithelial cells are located. Listen to this part carefully. Let's say you just got the vaccine injection. Antibodies were made, and they go around the blood vessels. I mean, the whole body. Say, all of a sudden, the COVID-19 viruses in droplet come into your nose, and the viruses are just about to touch the epithelial cells inside your nose. See, now is the time the antibodies are supposed to prevent the viruses from touching the cells. Question: can the antibodies protect your body from the COVID-19 viruses? No, they cannot. Do you know the reason? Because the antibodies reside under the basement membrane. They do not exist in the area of epithelial cells. They don't. How could they possibly stop the infection? They cannot. To help you understand this, let me give you an example that contrasts with this. See, let's take hepatitis vaccine for instance. Hepatitis vaccine always does a very good job when it tries to stop the viruses from infecting your body. Let's assume some hepatitis viruses happen to come into your mouth. You swallow the saliva and the viruses get into your digestive system and eventually enter your blood vessels. While traveling in the blood vessels, the viruses look for their target, which is the liver. Once they find it, they settle down on the liver, not any other organ, but specifically the liver. Once the liver cells got infected, the T lymphocyte will attack or kill the cells. So the liver will have to go through some artillery bombardment. That's how the liver cells get worse and have symptoms like jaundice, for example. Think about the process. The way you get infected with hepatitis has to do with your blood vessels. The blood vessel is a very essential part when it comes to the process where the hepatitis virus infects the liver. This time, let's say you got the vaccine injection. You have the antibodies in your body vessels, and they are waiting for the hepatitis viruses to come into the blood vessels. Now, antibodies are spread everywhere in your blood vessels, and it is not possible for the viruses to avoid encountering the antibodies. These antibodies seize the viruses and prohibits them from going into the liver cells. This is how hepatitis vaccine perform their mission. Think about this. If the droplets in the air that contain COVID-19 viruses come into your nose and try to cling to the mucous membrane inside your nose, how can the antibodies underneath the basement membrane possibly stop the virus from reaching the cells? That is impossible. No chance at all. I'm telling you, it is 0% possibility. Trust me. I am 100% confident. You have probably heard the news a few days ago, on March the 2nd. The news about the situation in Israel. Nearly 80% of Israeli people got the vaccine. However, the number of confirmed cases was increasing exponentially, even after the high proportion of people got the vaccine. Think about this. This doesn't make any sense. Do you think I'm making something up to make people believe what I'm saying? No, please don't say that. I'm saying this as a scientist who has the knowledge of how the body system works. See, what I've just said perfectly explains the absurd situation in Israel. Look, if 80% of people have gotten the vaccine, there should be no confirmed case, not a single one. South Africa COVID variant? Oh, come on. That doesn't make any sense. You think the variant at this starting phase can possibly cause this level of surge in cases? Like, the number of cases stays at the same level. Neither surges nor goes down. Even that would be very weird, considering the fact that more than half of the people have already gotten the vaccine. Do you know what herd immunity is? If 60% of people have gotten the vaccine, it means game over and everything gets back to normal. That is herd immunity by definition. 75% of people have gotten the vaccine, and the number of the confirmed cases even increased. Seeing this weird phenomenon, a lot of doctors say they are going to get the vaccine. Oh no, it makes me so sad to hear them say like that. Yes, I admit, there certainly is the situation that people should get the vaccine. Okay, let me talk a little bit about the case in which the vaccine could be useful. People who have poor immune systems do not have any way to prevent the virus from increasing. And the cells of that group of people may get weakened, and the basement membrane may collapse. And then the virus enters the blood vessel. In this case, the antibodies will do their job and take care of the viruses. But how many people of this kind are there? If this is the case, the doctors in charge have to make themselves very clear that the purpose of the vaccine is to prevent any likely infected patient from developing the disease into more serious state. Now, does it sound reasonable if they say all the people must get the vaccine? No, because 99% of people have no chance of developing light infection into deadly infection. Less than 1% of the people come down to this category of those who really need the vaccine. Furthermore, very unfortunately, what's really happening is, when they gave the vaccine to those who needed vaccine, some of them died due to the side effect or adverse event. That is the problem. I just want the doctors to have a more precise understanding of this. When mRNA is injected into your body, the COVID protein gets synthesized according to the information the mRNA has, and then the antibodies against that protein is produced. That is how the mechanism with a vaccine works. Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, whatever company makes the vaccine, they are all the same in terms of the way it works. Their methods will be a little different from each other in detail, but after all, the protein has to be there so that the B lymphocyte can make the antibodies which can take care of the viruses. Again, the protein is made according to the information the mRNA has. And when the protein is synthesized, there should inevitably be some immune reaction. And I suspect the deadly adverse event has something to do with that immune reaction. I looked into the cases of death after vaccine injections. And can you guess what I found out? The pattern of death was exactly the same as the cases of death due to COVID-19. That is, in both cases, people died of clogged blood vessels. When a person dies of COVID-19, they die because of cytokine storm. You can refer to the research report. The New England Journal of Medicine, which was issued last year, has the report in it. COVID-19 causes the blood vessels to be clogged by blood clots. It's a very serious problem. What happens when blood vessels get clogged? All the organs die. That is called multi-organ failure. The obstetrician from Florida, who was 56 years old, had a Pfizer vaccine injected and died. Do you know how he died? Platelets were gone. A lot of clots and no platelets. He actually died of a cerebral infarction while getting treatment to address the platelet issue. And the pattern here, I mean, how people die after the injection, is exactly the same as that of COVID-19 cases. Yes, they say that we can get immunized when we have antibodies. But we still don't know what exactly happened to the people who died after getting the vaccine. But there must be something that triggered the cytokine storm, which led them to death. I wish we knew what the trigger really was. Some say it just so happened without any cause or reason. No, there must be a reason for that, even though we don't know it yet. Think about this. Among the people who came down with COVID-19, as long as they had it only within the respiratory epithelium part, among them, there is no one who died of COVID-19. Yes, among 2.5 million people worldwide who died due to COVID-19, not a single person belongs to the group of epithelium-limited COVID. Then who died? Just like I mentioned, there are people whose basement membrane collapsed so that the viruses could enter the blood vessels. Furthermore, not all of them died, but a certain proportion of them died. Look, when the mRNA got injected into your arm, the mRNAs, which you can just consider the same as COVID-19, come into your blood vessel, and they spread all throughout your body. If the mRNAs do not spread, the antibodies cannot be made. Look, think for a moment about this. What on earth is this? Is this any different from what happens when the basement membrane collapses and the viruses enter your blood vessels? Practically speaking, in this case, the vaccine just satisfied the condition required to lead you to death. If you are to get the vaccine in order to avoid coming down with COVID-19, do not get the vaccine. But if you are worried about your weak immune system, which may break your basement membrane, and as a result, the virus is coming down into the blood vessels, just as I told you, the vaccine might help your body not develop the situation into a critical one. I think you can choose to get the vaccine if you consider your condition this bad. However, although it does not happen very frequently, the vaccine certainly has deadly adverse events. That is the fact of the matter. Furthermore, this is the first attempt in the human history where mRNA is used for vaccine. It is very difficult to make it, but they succeeded. Yes, I appreciate that. Nonetheless, they didn't have enough time to test whether it is safe to use or not. The testing period has to be at least 5 years. Usually, it takes 10 years to have the new vaccine tested for safety. However, what is happening now is it took less than 1 year to develop the new vaccine and get people ready to get injection. We have to think about this. Speaking of doctors and nurses, yes, I understand why they choose to get the vaccine themselves without hesitation, because Pfizer and Moderna conducted a test that looks very important. You can refer to the New England Journal of Medicine for the research report. It seems to me that doctors and nurses adhere strictly to the result of the test and recognize no other opinion. I read the report myself. The dissertation has a lot of pages, but I looked into it thoroughly. As a scientist, I have written more than 100 theses. Also, I've been in the position of examining theses written by someone else. I gotta say this. If I had been asked to examine the test conducted by the pharmaceutical companies, I would never have approved of the test result. I mean, any scientist with the scholarly conscience would never have said yes to the dissertation. Let me talk a little bit about the experiment. It involves 43,000 examinees. Half of them get injections with real vaccine, and the other half with fake vaccine like saline solution. Think about this. It was not conducted inside a closed facility. They got the injections, and all the examinees continued their everyday lives as usual. After 3 weeks, they got the second injection, and after another 7 days, all the examinees received telephone call or text messages that asks them to come to the hospital if there is anyone who has the symptoms of a common cold. At the hospital, the people go through the RT-PCR test, and that's it. 168 people came to the hospital, and all of them were confirmed positive. Among the 168 people, 160 were those who had saline solution injected, and 8 were those who had real vaccine injected. This result is just fantastic. 160 divided by 168 and multiplied by 100. There we go. That's how we got the 95%. Nevertheless, if we take the characteristics of the COVID-19 into consideration, we will find out that the number of patients with no symptoms is bigger than that of patients with symptoms. Considering this, it does not make sense to have only 168 people go through the RT-PCR test. They should have tested all the 43,000 examinees. Yes, all of them should have gotten RT-PCR test. How does it make sense? There must have been a lot of examinees who just didn't come to the hospital even when they had symptoms. They should have called all the 43,000 people and told them to come to the hospital for simple checkups at least. But they didn't do that. Is it reasonable for us to accept what the thesis concluded? No way. Never. What do the authorities say about those who died after the injections? We do not see any causation. According to them, there is no one who died because of the vaccine. They say that the people who died after getting vaccine had their own underlying diseases. That's nonsense. If they had not gotten the vaccine, they never would have died. Even with their underlying diseases, they would be alive now. I don't think that is the approach that they are supposed to choose. Thanks for watching.
When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll.